So my name is Dave Tenney, and I'm the Sports Science and Performance Manager for the Seattle Sounders in MLS. My presentation today was on development of risk profiles for elite athletes. And it was a practical approach to an injury model that we've created in Seattle for this past couple of seasons. With Seattle, we've got a lot of challenges in terms of the number of games we play over the course of the year. I think we've played the most games in MLS over the last 5 years. Travel, being in Seattle and traveling across the country. Surface, I play on artificial grass, so about 60% of our games are on artificial grass. And as a result, we've tried to put together a model that incorporates all that with the various technologies we've used. We currently are using Catapult GPS in partnership with HRV, sleep monitoring, some jump testing technology, and we're trying to put everything together to gauge who might be at risk for injury. I think that over the last 10 years or so, there's been a sharp increase in the technologies available to most sports teams. I'm not always sure that the sports teams, that the coaching staff and the sports teams actually know what to do totally with it. It's up to us as sports scientists or performance coaches to fill in that gap of what the technology means, what type of information we can get from the data. So I think in recent years there's been a huge increase in looking at injury prediction models, and the issue sometimes is that I think we focus on looking at the guys that are at risk and just trying to barely keep them resilient enough to stay healthy. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in that paradigm that we need to flip it and look at who are the athletes that never get injured in this chaotic training environment we have, who stays robust, who gets stronger over the course of the season, and what type of profile do those guys have. And so what I've tried to do with our club at times is flip this risk profiling and turn it into a profile of players that stay healthy, that get stronger, and then look for the traits in those athletes. As we're utilizing data, I think sometimes the issue is that we have raw data available to us, we have metrics that we create, and then we have algorithms that we sometimes lump together as one big unit that is just kind of a mass of numbers. So I think we need to separate raw data, what that means, take that raw data and turn that into metrics, and the metrics become communication tools to our coaching staff. And then maybe under the hood of the sports science, we use the raw data through algorithms to do some predictive things, but that's, I think, separate from the metrics that end up going to our coaches. So I think we're trying to create a risk model, and the thing about modeling is that it's a prediction, it's an approximation, and inherent in that is that it's not going to be 100% accurate. So I think the development of metrics is one of the key takeaways I've had in the last year in terms of communication with coaches, that I think we need to focus on creating metrics that create a context that our coaches understand, and that allows the coaches to have insight into whatever work is being performed or response to the work being performed that the coaches may not otherwise understand. I think if we look at the macro level of these metrics, you've got descriptive phase, predictive phase, and a prescriptive phase, and most teams, franchises operate still at the descriptive level where they're getting a snapshot of how hard a team might be working, but then everything stops there. And the goal down the road is, can we work in a more predictive and prescriptive way to give us information that will lead us to believe what the output and the outcome from work is going to be. most teams, I think, and most clubs in the US now are creating huge silos of information, and we have so much data that we've become inundated, and I think that one, we have to have people responsible in every club that are responsible for data integration, so that all the data is housed together in a server, in a database, not on individual computers, where the people in charge of the data can easily access it, analyze it, and then visualize it. Also, if we look at the timeline of what we're doing with data and creating models, I think there's kind of a three-step evolution. The first step, you're collecting all of your relevant data, you're trying to integrate it in one place and really make it accessible. Once you've passed that phase, and that phase may take 6 to 12 months, once you're through there, you want to use the data to start creating a model that can begin to predict outputs based on all the input of daily workloads or response to games or whatever the data may be. You're going to use this model, get your outputs from this model, and then probably after an 18 to 24 month period, you'll evaluate the model, look at the results you get from it, and tweak it. So the particular model we have in place in Seattle, which is, it's not rocket science, but I think it's quite formalized in that we have our match demands. We're currently using match analysis software that gives us some physiological data and work performed. So we have our match demands and what types of distance players are covering in games. We're using some HRV, omega wave technology in the post-game period to assess post-game fatigue. We then now have enough data after we get that to begin to predict injury risk for the following week period. And then we can kind of sit down and look at the fatigue levels of the team. We can look at how is the group, how are particular individuals relative to the group in terms of fatigue. We can begin to plan appropriate training loads. We then incorporate the catapult system into actually assessing the loading of the training. And then as we get closer to the game, we're seeing who's coping with the training stress and who isn't. And we're really assessing recovery before we come full circle around to the match demands. When it comes specifically to catapult on a daily basis with us, we feel like, in past years that people have really focused on a lot of velocity-based metrics, and I think as we go forward, that looking at acceleration, deceleration values, IMA metrics, and some of those things, that these instantaneous accelerations and decelerations are some of the most demanding elements of the training load process, and so we need to quantify those, and those have become a part of our metric. And as a result, we've created a 3-part training load score on a daily basis of body load score, a velocity load score, and then a heart rate score. Body load and velocity load then come out as our mechanical load metrics, and then we've got our heart rate load as our internal load. From that, we can then begin to prescribe activities that might be more velocity load dominant versus body load dominant, and then again it circles around to our communication with our coaching staff and to what individual exercises might elicit an overload within body load or overload within velocity load, and we can then make those prescriptions based on fatigue level of certain positions, and then fit in our periodization to make sure we're getting some variability in training on a daily basis. Within all that, we can look at body load and velocity load relative to our heart rate load to get some efficiency markers, and then ultimately it's up to me on a daily basis to decide, once it comes to passing the message on to the coaches, what forms might be effective for that day. Are we looking at efficiency markers? Are we looking at some absolute body load, velocity load scores? Are we looking at percentage of heart rate load as a percentage of overall loading score? And I think the messaging to most people in sports science over the past couple of years are first and foremost to be clear on how you're going to package the information that goes back to the coaches and what form that's going to be in. We've been able to do that to really create the message that as we've assessed fatigue, that we plan effectively, and then we can look at these efficiency responses from the individual athletes and then pass on a daily basis how well players are coping with the training stress.